Today we're welcoming Suzie Booth, a counselor, psychotherapist, and clinical supervisor with nearly 15 years of experience supporting individuals, couples, and families. She's also a mother of two and specializes in parenthood, relationships, and the emotional transition when becoming a parent. Suzie, welcome. We're very happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. There's nothing I love more than talking about how hard parenting is. So this is like the perfect evening for me.
Very welcome, Suzie. And we just saw your post about how you decided to become a therapist, but can you tell us a little bit more? Why psychology and why are you focusing on couples and parents?
So really, I was really fortunate actually. Like I knew that I wanted to be a therapist from really early on. And what I always say is like, we all carry stuff, right? We've all got emotional baggage. And the baggage that I carry just led me really to wanting to understand people better. That was always my motivation. You know, people would always answer that question of why do you want to be a therapist is like, oh, I just really want to help people. And my answer was always just, I'm actually just really interested in how people work. And the happy consequence is that hopefully that helps people. But obviously, the more I've done it over the years, those like 15 years, the more I've realized, like, yeah, just how many people are just not happy within themselves, not at peace with kind of who they are and the things that have happened in their lives. And I really enjoy trying to help people really understand their story and what's going on for them. And then really, I started focusing on working with parents after I became a parent. So after I had my first child, I just found it really tough. You know, I found it really, really hard. It didn't start in the smoothest way, as it doesn't for a lot of people. You know, it wasn't the smoothest birth and feeding experience, and I just felt for such a long time like I'm really just not very good at this. You know, I'm not a natural at this. Everybody else is doing better than me. Um, and then I realised that actually that's the way that most parents feel. Um, and then the couples work. So I've been working with couples now for about 10 years. And what I noticed was that the majority of couples that I was getting in the room were couples with young children or couples with older children, but who were telling me the problem started when we had our first child or when we had our second child. And everything that was maybe like a slight annoyance before we had kids has just become a massive problem between us. We're disconnected, we're resentful, we're fighting, we're not spending any time with each other. And so I realized, you know, like what a really big deal this is for people, that when they become parents, not only is it really difficult for you as an individual, but you kind of lose your partner, you lose that anchor point of your relationship at the same time. So that's really what's brought me into really kind of focusing in on this area.
We love your answer because we would like to touch all that you talk about. But so let's start maybe like right now, where we'll be hearing a lot about matrescence and that huge transition into motherhood, right? And as well, we want to put the focus that you were saying that maybe when we have a baby, people like when you meet someone, it's always how is the baby doing, right? Some other people, it's like how is the mom doing? But it's a very little people who is like how is their relationship going since the baby arrived. So I don't know. You think like that we don't talk enough about how baby like affects the relationship and why is that?
I think there's something about relationships that still feel really like private, really personal. It's almost like we don't want to go there, do we, with other people's relationships? It feels like we're stepping into this territory where we're maybe like asking them to start almost like somehow being disloyal to their partner by possibly saying actually things aren't good, or actually he or she is doing my head in, or whatever it is. So I think we almost like we're a bit nervous to go there. But you're absolutely right, Kristen. Like we need to be asking these questions. Like you say, like, how is baby? How's mum? How's partner? You know, if that's dad, how's dad? And how's you guys? Like, how's the dynamic? How's the relationship? Because it is an entity all of its own. And what I try and talk to couples about is these like 5 different areas of prioritization. You know, you have to prioritize the kids probably like most of the time, right? They get prioritized most of the time. You do have to prioritize yourself at times. You do need to prioritize your partner at times. We need to prioritize obviously like family time, that whole unit. But actually we also have to prioritize our relationship at times, you know, that bit that's just us, that's the two of us, and try to put attention into how is it going? How are we doing? Is there anything here that kind of needs attention? Because you're right, there's you know, obviously this kind of big campaign at the moment to get the word matrescence out there, which is amazing that that's being more recognised. But what we don't want really is for this process of becoming parents to become more about one person or one thing than another. Everybody needs their space. You know, the word matrescence is massive. There is also the word putrescence, you know, like it's remembering, isn't it, that the partners go through a lot as well. You guys are both changing, you're both going through a lot, you're both struggling, and we really want you to both be helping each other through that process.
We often put the mask that everything is okay. Oh, I'm not struggling as a mom, I'm doing great, but inside the house I'm crying because I don't know what I'm doing. And the same with the relationship. I think like we don't want to say, oh, we're struggling, because it's like a failure kind of, right?
Yes, and I mean, like usually, you know, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, we've probably had the child because we're in a pretty good place in our relationships, and this is like a really exciting thing that we're doing together. It's the next step that we're taking with each other, and yeah, how difficult it would be to admit to other people, well, actually, that thing that we did because we were in such a good place is actually putting us in quite a bad place,
Mm-hmm.
and what people might think of that. We do tend to be quite protective of our relationships, don't we? We want the world to think that things are going well, that we're okay with each other,
Yeah.
and it's really difficult to be vulnerable and say, you know, actually, like, yeah, it is hard between us, and I am feeling a bit resentful, and that doesn't mean that we're on the brink of breaking up. It just means that I need to talk about it. And I honestly think, I mean, the statistics show us, right, that more couples than not are struggling with this. So in all likelihood, the person you're talking to is going to respond to you and be like, yeah, I get it. Same in my relationship.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's how we got here, right? Because like we both had the first kid. Well, I have two. Uh, the first kid like in COVID times, right? Where you spend a lot of time in social media. So you see everything is perfect after you have the baby and all that. And we think like that pressure in social media makes you not to talk about it, right? Because when we talk, like complaining, like listen, let's say complaining or just venting, like because you need to talk these things with someone. So you say it, and then you hear in the other side, it's the same with me. That's happened to me too. So you feel a bit like better, you know, like it's not just me.
And it's amazing, like whenever I go and do, you know, like I'll go and do talks sometimes for kind of mum groups around this topic, and the amount of people that come over after and they're like, oh yeah, you know, that's my relationship. Or there are other people, there's like a photographer there photographing it, and she'll come over and be like, oh yeah, when I had my first child, we went through a really rocky patch, you know. And it is exactly like you say, we see things on social media and people feed it to us, don't they? They say in those early days, like, oh, enjoy the bubble. It's like we're all supposed to be in this lovely little bubble with each other, just really enjoying life. And the reality is, like, you're probably just absolutely full of resentment at that point for your partner who's not doing absolutely everything in the world that you need them to be doing, for the child because they're just hard work and annoying. You know, like there's just resentment flying around all over the place.
Yeah, like you said, the reality is different when the child arrives, and like the connection, the communication loosen up, and we don't prioritize each other. And but like, would you recommend some top do's and top don'ts that couples should keep in mind after having a child?
Yes. So the kind of top don'ts that I think is trying not to assume things about each other and about each other's days. So it's really easy to assume that the other person is not doing as much as us. It's really easy, isn't it, to assume that the other person has had a better day than us. You know, we can hear from our partner, maybe they've gone out to work, maybe we're on maternity leave and they've gone out to work, and we think, oh my gosh, they've been able to leave the house and they've probably sat and had lunch by themselves. How lovely. And they've been fulfilled by their work. And the reality is that they might have been actually really stressed. They might not have even had time for lunch. People might have spoken to them badly. They might have felt the massive pressure to perform well because they're earning at the moment. And then equally, it's really easy for them to assume things about our days when we say, oh, I've been to a baby class, or I've been for coffee with the antenatal mums. And actually, the reality of that might have been baby screamed the whole way through the class and it was just so embarrassing. Or the mums I met up with, their babies are all sitting up already and ours is not sitting up. And now I'm really worried why they're not sitting up and I'm full of anxiety. And the really kind of top don't for me is like, don't assume things about each other. You know, we really want to try and replace that with being curious about each other. Like, how was your day? What was work like? How was the baby class? How are you feeling after it? Just really accepting that we don't know what the other person's experience is, and that we're likely at this stage when we're feeling that things are difficult to just keep projecting what we think is happening onto them. So that's like a real top for me, like a top don't. Just stop assuming things about each other.
Okay. What about the do's? The prioritizing the partner and the relationship, that's what you already said, and something else?
Yeah. So there's a big thing about that prioritization, like making time for each other. I guess, and the way that we're able to do that in the early days of parenting is through real kind of like micro moments of connecting with each other. We don't have the same time anymore, right, to connect. So sometimes we might not want to or have accessible like a babysitter. We don't have to rely on a babysitter. So it's like it's tiny, tiny moments. Like have a 10-minute check-in with each other. Sit and have a cup of tea. Have a hug in the kitchen. You know, like whilst you're cooking dinner, just have like a 30-second hug. And this is where that prioritization comes in because we always think like I haven't got time. I haven't got time. Dishing up the dinner. Everybody's hungry. I haven't got time for a hug. Like, well, how dare you approach me for a hug? But actually, everybody could wait 30 seconds more for their dinner so that you can just have a quick hug, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it's just, you know, prioritizing tiny, tiny pockets of time with each other, and accepting at this stage that that is probably all going to be that is available to you. And that obviously gets a little bit easier as the kids get older, but micro moments are better than no connection at all.
Yeah, I like that. It doesn't have to be big date night every month. It's just a small stuff. Yeah.
And often we haven't even got the energy for big date nights. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, we're like, oh, should we go and do something? And I think, oh, I just want to sit in my pajamas on the sofa. Like, I don't want to do anything else. And I guess like the other kind of big thing that I think with couples at this stage is really trying to make conscious with each other, like who's doing what. Because what I see a lot of with couples with the resentment is that each of you thinks that you're doing more than the other one is. And quite often, if we're being honest, you know, the mums feel like they are carrying and doing more than the dads are.
Yeah.
And this leads to a lot of resentment, a lot of conflict, a lot of disconnection. And so what we really want to try and do with couples is make sure that they are each aware of everything that the other one is holding, so that they're aware and appreciative of what's going on, and making it really conscious. Like, actually, I do feel like I'm holding more here. You need to take ownership of some of this stuff so that it feels fairer. Because that's probably the biggest source of conflict that you see in the couples counselling, is that sense of like, you're carrying way more than me and I'm not happy about it.
Yeah, actually that was our next question, because like we thought like so many people struggle with that, right? And as you say, it's poor communication or not recognizing what the other person is doing. So we recently read the five love languages.
Oh,
The
yeah.
book that you recommended your website as well. And like, yeah, we realize like, is that right? We need to recognize what the other person does, and that poor communication, that maybe like, as the book says, like some person it's more into receive that love in a different way that we don't know. So it was actually a very nice reading, and like it's very recommended like to everybody out there.
Yeah, it's really easy sometimes, isn't it, to miss like how your partner is trying to show you that they love you, because it's not the way that you receive it. And the really tricky thing with couples is it's actually really rare to get a couple that both have the same love language. So you're always dealing with this issue. And really what we want each other to be doing is like recognizing that's how my partner shows love. So being able to interpret what it is that they're doing as a way that they care and love them, but also for us to know each other's love languages so that we can make a bit of an effort to kind of give love to our partners in their language as well. So really stepping outside of our language, making an effort to learn their language and giving them little snippets of that as well. And obviously, like, all of this it's difficult to do when you've got kids, isn't it? Because it requires like effort and energy and capacity that we don't really have when we've got children. Anything that's extra effort is like, oh, I just can't do it. But and this is the other thing I kind of try and say to couples is like, let's say that the last child that you had, whether that's your first child or a subsequent child, let's say that it turned out that that child was twins, right? You were having twins. You would make space and capacity to look after that extra child. You would just make extra space in your life for that person. What we're asking you to do with your partner is make a little bit of extra space for them, because quite often you'll hear people be like, I'm completely burnt out from work and parenting, I've got nothing left for them. But we can't live our lives having no capacity left for our partners at all. You know, we have got to prioritize them at times. We've got to make space for them. We've got to understand their love language. We've got to be willing to try and give them bits of that so that they feel loved and cared about and appreciated. And I'm not saying that that's easy. It's absolutely not easy. But even just having it in mind and having that intention, I think makes a big difference with couples.
Yes, that's for sure. And the book that you, Chris, mentioned, I think it would be a good read for the high school kids to before they step into the relationship, to actually to find out, okay, so my love language, I like to be loved this way, and I give the love this way. So that would be much easier for us when we were younger now, right?
Actually,
There's so much of this, isn't there, that like we just never get taught.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
Yes, we were never prepared. Like the same for the becoming a mom. Like we only see this beautiful picture, but nobody really talks. Or now more people talks about it. But before, when I was pregnant, I just saw the beautiful pictures and the happiness, and I was not knowing what I'm stepping into.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because, also, I do think before I was a parent, a lot of people did say to me, it's really hard, it is really hard work. But almost at that point in life, you're just sort of like, yeah. Like you just don't take it on, do you? Almost like don't want to believe it, or you think, oh no, I'll be fine. You might find it hard, but I'll be fine. And then of course you
Yeah.
become a parent and you realize, oh wow, no, it is like relentlessly hard.
It is. And you also mentioned that some couples are coming to you that their kids are already older, but the problem started after having the child. So there is definitely a resentment that you mentioned about. Why is it that it's building up so easily and we are not able to let it go, even though, let's say, we already spoke about it with our partner? We kind of said, okay, it's fine, nothing happened, but we still keep coming back to it. It's coming to the surface.
I think what's really difficult is that couples get into patterns really early on. So they have their first child, they get into the way that it works between them, and that really doesn't often get renegotiated between them as like life changes. So most of the time, not all of the time, but most of the time, parenting life starts off with mum being on maternity leave, right? That's generally how it starts. So what tends to happen there is mum takes on this role of like, I know everything that's going on with the kids. Like I know what snacks they need. I'm figuring out the nap times or the sleep training or how they want to be rocked or whatever it is. When mum then perhaps goes back to work, she often just carries on doing that same role. Like it's not renegotiated now that life has changed. And just over the years, her continuing with that role just leads to more and more and more kind of mental, physical, emotional load, more resentment that partner doesn't know all of this stuff. And you will find with couples that have got like 15-year-old children that this has been going on for 15 years, you know,
That's a
and
lot.
it's a lot. And by that point, the distance between them is just so massive. It's a really difficult task to bridge that gap by that point. And like you say, Jules, you know, by that point, it's so set in that people find it really difficult to let go of it. So even in
Yeah.
couples therapy, if partners are like, right, I completely acknowledge that, let's do it differently, it's been sat with them for such a long time. You know, 15 years of something feeling unfair is really difficult to let go of quickly. So we really want to try and catch it as early as possible. I mean, it is possible to repair things after a long amount of time, but what we really need to see is like action from the other person. So it's all very well, isn't it, like having the conversation and people saying, yeah, totally get it. But we then need things to change. And often things don't actually change after the conversation. So then people have conversation after conversation and nothing ever changes. So then they stop trusting the conversation and things just get gradually worse over time.
Susie, would you say like, yeah, like that usually happen that the mom is on maternity leave and like we're with the kids, and then when we go back to work, we are a bit like imposing the way we were doing till now to our partner, and it's like you have to do it this way and this way and this way, and it's not helping much. Right?
100%, yeah. Because we sort of take ownership over it, don't we? And we're like, right, I figured out the best way. So this has become the right way. And if you do it a different way, it means it's the wrong way.
Yeah.
And what you find is sometimes, like, you know, I do it with my husband sometimes, you know, he'll say like, oh, I'll say, why don't you ever just think to put a wash on or something like that? And then he'll put a wash on, and then I'll be like, well, why have you done that? Because there was loads more stuff that I wanted to go in there. And, you know, it's that constant, like, you're not doing it right. Or for, somebody said to me the other day, actually, you know, he never cooks food. And then one day he went into the fridge, found food, cooked it, and then it was like, why have you used that? I was saving that for 2 days' time. And it's I guess like if we're going to ask our partners to step into these roles, we have to allow them to step into the roles and accept that they might do things differently. Except, I guess, when they're starting to do these things, they're going to be on their own discovery process, and that we might actually have to help like educate them. I always think my husband is, I'm really lucky, he's really handy around the house, he's great with DIY. But if he turned around to me tomorrow and said, Susie, I'm fed up with having to do all the DIY, you need to start doing some of the DIY, I would have absolutely no idea where to start, right? I would really need him to help teach me how to do these things. And it's the same the other way around. If we want our partners to take on, you get the bag ready for us to go out. I don't want to have to do it each time. We're going to have to help educate them around what goes in the bag.
It's like we became a control freaks at some point, and we can't let it go, the control. And I think that's a big issue that we sometimes facing with that control, to just let it go.
Yeah, and usually, that control it's generally women, isn't it? Just gripping onto everything so tight because everything feels so out of control. Everything feels so much. It's like if I let go of anything, everything's going to fall apart. If I drop one ball, all the balls are going to drop. And so we're constantly managing everything in our heads. I've got that, I've got that, I've got that, I've got that. Don't touch that because that's going to... And it looks like, doesn't it? And I think often partners experience it like women are being really controlling. But what it is just a massive, massive amount of stress and anxiety and worry that things aren't going to be done right. And what does that mean in terms of how people are going to perceive us? What is that going to mean for our children if things aren't done right? Are we going to damage them somehow because they haven't got the right thing, whatever it is? So we're just gripping onto everything so tightly.
I cannot say how is it just to have one child, where that's bringing you, right? Because when I have my second one, they are in between 21 months in between them, okay? And I felt with the second one, I felt a bit more relieved. Like now we have two, we are two, it's kind of one each. And you feel a bit more like letting go, because I cannot manage by myself. It's okay if it's not doing it my way, as long as it's done.
Yeah, I think when you get to that stage where you're just like, I haven't got the capacity to care as much. It sounds awful, doesn't it? Like you care about your children as much, but you're like, we've just got to survive at this point. And
True.
Yeah, anything we're doing that is helping us as a family unit, we're all just helping each other to survive. And before I had children, my house was a real pride. It was always spotlessly tidy and clean. And I remember somebody saying to me, when you have children, you're going to have to let that go a bit. And I thought, no. And now, I just don't. I look at the sink sometimes, I'm like, that needs to be cleaned, and I'm not going to do it right now.
Yeah, it's like, you don't look that way. Now I go to sleep, I'll deal with it tomorrow.
It's the tomorrow's problem.
Tomorrow's problem.
Close the door. That's it.
Yeah. And that reminds me, another thing with couples is there's quite often really different expectations between the two of them. So when we might look at something and think, oh my gosh, that needs a clean, why has he not noticed that needs a clean? To him, he's like, looks fine. They're just completely different expectations. I had a conversation with somebody around Christmas time, and we were talking about how mums basically do the whole of Christmas, they sort out the whole lot. And saying to the male who was in the conversation, dads don't do any of it. And the male saying but we don't do it because what we would do would not be good enough for you. The expectation of it is just so high that there's a real mismatch between partners around what actually needs doing.
Let's get there when many couples say that they start feeling more like roommates after having children. Is this like a normal phase, or it's a sign that something is going south, let's say, and we should like stop and check it?
So I think what's kind of like normal, what you would expect is for kind of physical affection and intimacy to lessen, right? You're not going to have the same energy. A lot of the time, women don't feel good about themselves after they've had children. Like our bodies completely change and we're exhausted and all of those things. So it is usual to see a drop. If we're ending up feeling like we're just roommates, I think that's a sign that something needs some attention. You know, it's what generally happens is that when we become parents and we're stressed and we're anxious and we're tired and we're stretched, it puts us into that kind of like elevated nervous system. So we go into that like fight flight place where we basically our bodies feel really under threat. When we're in that place, what it means is it's very, very difficult for us to kind of access emotional connection and intimacy. So we see that in like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So we have kind of, you know, a layer of needing personal safety. And then the layer on top of that is the ability to kind of be emotionally intimate and connected with somebody else. So if we're not feeling safe, if our nervous systems are elevated, we're not going to be able to be kind of emotionally intimate with somebody else. That's especially true for women. So women really need that like connection with their partner before they're able to be affectionate and intimate in any way. The difficulty is that for men, they are generally wired a bit differently, and they use intimacy as the way to connect. So what you'll find with couples is he's saying, but if we just had more of that, then we would be more connected. And then women are saying, I can't do any of that until we're connected. So again, you get into this kind of standoff with each other where it's just not quite gelling. And for men, you know, genuinely for them, it feels like a massive rejection. They really struggle. They can't understand why their partner suddenly doesn't want to have that with them anymore. It's really difficult for them to understand. But I mean, what they say is like, you know, in order for a woman to be turned on, her mind has to be turned off. And it's so difficult when you're parenting children to get to that stage of feeling calm and safe and connected and your mind switched off. And so the intimacy decreasing and dropping, we would absolutely expect to see. It's never going to be what it was before we had children. But if you're feeling just like roommates, if you've completely lost that like emotional connection with each other, that real sense of like being a team and that care and that propping each other up, then that's a time that we would probably say, let's take a deeper look at what's going on between the two of you.
And that's bringing us to the topic of the therapy itself. I don't know if you watch on Netflix new series or program Blue Therapy.
No, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I've watched it and I really like it. It's basically about the couples therapy. We are brought to the room with them and we can see how they going through resentment and other problems they have in the relationship. And do you think programs like that, they making people to, or making men to warm up about the idea of couples therapy? Is it helpful, or watching other couples on television, it's like, oh, I'm not gonna do it, never. It's not gonna be me.
I think it's helpful. I think the more like normalized it can be, the better, because like what we were talking about at the beginning, people are generally quite protective of their relationships. And for a lot of couples, there's this sense of like, oh, if we go to couples therapy, we're kind of admitting that our relationship's not good. And people have this idea that people only go to couples therapy when they're literally about to break up.
Yeah.
And actually, we don't want them to be thinking that at all. We want them to come like as early as possible. So I do think that, you know, like anything that can just normalize, like it's okay to just go and talk to someone. You know, like you're just saying, look, we're not completely happy with things, so let's just go and figure this out with somebody else. Is great. And I think, those programs are always so interesting, aren't they? And they always
They
show
are.
like, oh, just the best therapists that you're like, oh, this person's so amazing. But it shows like this whole like massive range of things that couples go through, and how, it's rarely ever like it's one person's fault. What those programs show you is it's how the two of you are coming together. It's that mix of the two of you, the dynamic. It's not like, well, this person is 100% wrong, because that's the other thing that couples worry about, is that they're going to come in and they're going to be told you're doing everything wrong and you need to go and change everything. And that's not what we're doing. We're just looking at something's not working about the way that the two of you are meeting each other.
I always say that the stick has two ends always, and there can't be in the relationship just one side fault. But sometimes we get into the relationship carrying like a personal trauma or childhood trauma. Do you see that in couples therapy, that you recommend, okay, you guys have to go to the individuals therapies first and then come back as a couple?
Yes, sometimes it is helpful to do that. I mean, the way that I work with couples is thinking about the couples therapy is like we're working with the relationship. So that's what we're working with. We're almost like not working with each of you as separate people. We're working with that relationship entity. So you're absolutely right, Jules, in that if what you identify as some really kind of deep-seated personal issues, then that's much better for them to kind of go and do their own work with their own therapist, and then come back together and see if we can get some movement now that those things have been worked through. Because we absolutely carry so much. And I'm always so interested with couples, like, what was your parents' relationship like, and how did you learn to deal with conflict, and what were your expectations? And it all gets into this relationship. And that's the thing about when children come along, they're not necessarily creating completely new problems. What being parents is it's putting pressure on the things that already exist. And they might have felt so tiny that you could barely feel them before kids. But the amount of pressure that heaps on when we have children.
Yeah, that's true, because like when we start a relationship, you are a person and your partner is a person, but then when the kid comes, like you evolve, but not just the mom who had the child, like the father, right? The other side changes as well. So that's like the new relationship.
Yeah.
It's a completely new relationship. And like, this is what I always use, the kind of analogy of like a Venn diagram. So that's what a relationship is, like, here's me in this circle and here's you in this circle. And our relationship is that bit that overlaps in the middle. And before kids, like, you were blue and I was yellow, and that bit in the middle was green. And then we go through our matrescence and putrescence, and I might turn red and you might turn white. And now the relationship's pink. And, pink and green are completely different colors. This thing looks totally different now.
Yeah.
And it's not the change in itself, I guess, that's actually dangerous. We want relationships to grow, and we want them to develop, and we want change over time. It would be so boring if your relationship stayed exactly the same the whole time that you were in it. What's dangerous is that in this season of our lives, we struggle to have the capacity to actually kind of deal with that change, to navigate it together, to figure out this new way of being with each other. And so the whole thing changes, but nobody's dealing with it.
But also, you've mentioned in one of the podcasts that you did about breaking up counseling.
Yes.
How that looks like, and what's the benefit?
So breakup counseling is something I talk about in two ways people can come into it. They're either kind of in couples therapy, and then they decide, actually, this relationship is not what is going to be good for either of us, so we're not going to continue with it. Or actually, sometimes people come into therapy having already broken up, and it's very much about figuring out how to end the relationship. Because how many times are people in relationships that break up, and it leaves them with so much baggage, doesn't it? So many unanswered questions, so many assumptions. We take all of that on, we put all of that then into the next relationship, which is not particularly helpful. And what kind of breakup counselling, or that figuring out that we're not right for each other and this is how we're going to move forward, just allows all those questions to be answered. It allows people to make sense of what happened between them. And when we've got children involved, when we're parents, it's how we actually manage to move forward as a good co-parenting team and not allow whatever is going on between us to get into our relationship with our children, and actually what we tend to think, because a lot of people will, when they're really, really unhappy in a relationship and they really know that they don't want to be in it anymore, is they'll say, oh, we'll just stay together for the kids. And actually, we don't want to be just staying together for the kids, because the kids pick up, even on unconscious levels, on everything. So if it's not good between the two of you, but you're actually doing quite a good job to hide it from your children will still be picking up on that energy. And actually, if they can't see that the two of you are not happy with each other, they'll think, mummy and daddy, they've got like a horror, not a very nice energy, but they seem fine with each other. And what kids will then do is go, must be me. I must be causing them to be unhappy. And obviously we don't want to be putting that on our children. So actually, in order for our children to be kind of emotionally regulated and healthy, we need the relationship to be emotionally regulated and healthy. And if it's not possible for the relationship to be like that, it's much better actually for it just not to carry on.
Because we often hear when parents are divorcing that they put the child to the therapy to deal with the emotions. But I think it's a great idea to do the therapy as a couple that is breaking up, because there's for sure a grief, because there was probably a relationship of a couple of years. So that's brilliant.
And it's so interesting. Sometimes you meet certain couples who, actually do decide that they don't want to carry on. And it's really difficult at first to see how they ever were a couple, like how they were ever together. But the more that you ask them and you talk about those earlier times, you can really see that most of the time there was so much love there at one point. And a lot of the time, that real anger and animosity between two people at the end of a relationship is, like what you say, Jules, like it's grief, isn't it? And it's so much easier to feel angry with them than it is to feel really sad.
And they are never gone from our lives if we have a kids together. They will be there. So you want it or not, you're going to see them on occasions.
Yeah, and the best relationship that you can have with them possible, like, it's going to be the best all round, isn't it? And thinking about, those times that you're going to have to be with each other, birthdays, if your kids get married one day, are you going to be able to sit on the top table together or not? And, what are going to be the ripple effects of the two of you not getting on, and how possible is it for the two of you to get on, like, okay enough?
We're really enjoying this conversation. But before we finish, could you tell our listeners where they can find you and learn about all the support you offer on your platforms?
Yes, absolutely. So the main place that I kind of hang out is on Instagram. So you can find kind of everything on there that I do, and the handle is @theparent_therapist. And what you'll see on there is details of the therapy work. I also have an online course which helps parents through kind of parenting young children, really helping them to move from that place of feeling completely overwhelmed to actually feeling calm and confident and authentic in their parenting. And I have got a free couples guide, so couples in parenting guide, for anybody who's on my mailing list, and all of those details are on my Instagram. So any way that I can help or support parents, you're all more than welcome to send me a message, and I can let you know how I can try and help, because I know it's hard.
I just wanted to say, the website is very complete as well, and you do just more than just couples therapy.
Yeah, so in terms of like my actual counselling practice, I see clients from all walks of life, all different problems, different ages, different seasons, and yeah, couples again, some couples with children. I also have done some extra training and sort of specialised in like rainbow babies and infertility as well. So individuals and couples actually who are really struggling with their fertility. So yeah, the website is sbcounselling.org, and on there you can find all of the information about all of the other support outside of parenting that I offer as well.
And just want to clarify, you do therapy in person or also online is available?
Both, yes.
Both.
So
Okay.
yeah, whatever works for people. If they're local, they can come in person if they want to, but yeah, I can work with people from all around the world online.
And where are you located?
That's nice.
In UK?
In UK, so I'm down in Sussex. So I'm in Horsham, which is a small town down in Sussex.
Thank you so much, Suzie. It was a pleasure, and thank you for your time. And we know it's late, so thank you for joining us at this time.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoy our conversation. I'm pretty sure many parents are gonna feel related.
Yeah, and if you have any question, any doubts about the therapy, you are more than welcome to contact Suzie. We put all her details and the way to contact her down below in the description, so go ahead.
And remember,
If you like our episode, share, like, and comment.
okay, guys, see you next Wednesday.
Same time, same place.
So take care.
Be kind to yourself.
Till next time.
Bye.
Bye.